there were very few people who were solving the problems that we do, right? A huge part of digitalization existed for the desk-bound ecosystem and not for the actual work execution. Most of the large legacy tech players that you know in this industry, they were solving for that.
So while there are many other collaboration platforms, industry leaders such as Indian Oil, NRL, and Reliance Industries Limited, specially choose your products. What makes your product so powerful compared to the other firms' products that make those industry leaders choose Maximl and rely so heavily on your product and services?
So, Harsha, I think this has to be put into perspective of our own journey, right? I think when we started off, the kind of problems that we were solving, I think the only reason why, let's say, large Fortune 500s look towards a young company or a startup to solve a very critical process, critical and like asset integrity critical processes, such as what we do, is that there were very few people who are solving the problems that we do, right? A huge part of digitalization existed for the desk-bound ecosystem and not for the actual work execution. Most of the large legacy tech players that you know in this industry, they were solving for that, especially in the process space, right? Oil and gas, steel, chemicals, and so on, right? So I think that is where we look at. During the initial phase of our journey, we identified that there are two major reasons why, let's say, the current solutions that are there in the market are not able to address that. First is that how can you basically bring in the localized context of one shop floor into that standard process, right? So there are a lot of workflow engines, there are a lot of standard solutions. How can you make it specific to one particular site and one particular shop floor or one particular use case is very, very critical. And the capabilities of the person who wants to do that configuration or achieve that should be taken into account while building the solution. So that was one part, which resulted into the kind of no-code platform that we built for doing this, right? So that was one. The second part of it is simply looking at adoption, right? A lot of the technology solutions for the space that we built for have traditionally been top-down solutions that have been sold by a very impressive salesman to the CXO boardroom. And then it is a 6-month implementation cycle. And when the rubber hits the road, the end user says, I don't want to use it. My life was better off while I was not one. And I'll find of course, these are smart people. They find great ways to do things that are really productive and really work, right? So unless you take the aspect of instant gratification of the final user who's going to drive that, this will not work. So I think that's the second part, which we looked at. The primary reason for that was the kind and for which the seeds were already sown in the B2C space, right? Because these are the same people who are now adopting all of the B2C apps that have come into their mobile phones, right? So that change is already happening. They want to use more and more a superior work experience even during their work, right? To adopt this better. So that was a clear thing that we focused on from day one, and we keep that at the forefront of our product engineering efforts, right? So you and not just through, I would say, user experience in terms of how it feels to use, but really saving time for them personally on a daily basis, right? How can you take away non-value? It's just part of the fundamental solution architecture itself. So those have been the two reasons. I think the reason why we've been able to deploy it enterprise-wide with some of the largest player, especially in the oil and gas sector, is because that of the adoption that comes up when you use the product, right? So I think those are the two reasons that we believe that this is working out, and we'll double down on them as we proceed.